If you watched the FIFA World Cup 2026 final halftime show, you saw Jimin do what Jimin always does. Sharp, magnetic, every step landing exactly where it should, every expression pulling millions of eyes straight to him on the biggest stage in world sports history. What you did not see was what happened in the hours before he walked out there. And once you know what that was, you are never going to watch that performance the same way again. Stick with me for the next few minutes, because this one goes deep, and by the end you are going to understand exactly why this moment matters so much. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe now, because we cover BTS and Jimin content like this every single week, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. So let's set the scene. July 19th, 2026, MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The FIFA World Cup final. Tens of thousands of fans in the stadium, and one of the largest global broadcast audiences in sports history watching around the world, and BTS is booked to deliver the halftime show of a lifetime. This is not some regular concert stop on the ARIRANG World Tour. This is the kind of stage that comes once in a career, if it comes at all. The pressure on every single member is enormous. But for Jimin specifically, the days leading up to that performance tell a story that most fans never got to see, because Bangtan just dropped a behind-the-scenes sketch video, and it changes everything. Now here is where it gets interesting, because right before this halftime show prep even started, Jimin had just come off the European leg of the ARIRANG World Tour. Paris, Stade de France. 2 nights that fans are still talking about, partly because of Jimin's custom Dior outfit designed by Jonathan Anderson himself, and partly because of the energy in that stadium that felt genuinely different from anywhere else on the tour. And here's the thing about Jimin. He does not just perform in a city and move on. He absorbs it. He lives in the moment while he is there. So when the cameras catch him during a break, sitting with the members, eating together, taking a breath before diving back into rehearsal, he does something you would not expect from someone about to walk onto the biggest stage of his life. He starts talking about how happy he was in Europe, not in a passing, polite way, in a way that makes it clear he genuinely did not want that tour to end. He talks about how much he loved being there, how the whole experience made him miss it already, and how he is already hoping to go back as soon as he possibly can. Think about that timing for a second. This is a man who, within days, is going to walk onto a football stadium stage in front of the largest audience of his life, and instead of his mind being locked entirely onto blocking, choreography, and camera marks, part of him is still back in Europe, still holding on to that feeling. That is not distraction. That is heart. That is the difference between an idol who just performs and an idol who actually feels every single show he has ever done. And if you have followed Jimin for any length of time, you know this is exactly who he is. He does not fake it. He does not perform happiness for the cameras and then drop it the second they cut. What you see from him on stage is genuinely connected to what he is feeling off stage, and this sketch video proves it in a way words alone never could. But here is where the story shifts, and this is the part that really gets me. Because right after that beautiful, warm moment of talking about Europe, the footage jumps into something much heavier. Jimin had just flown back from Paris straight into an unforgiving rehearsal schedule for the FIFA halftime show. Very little buffer, very little time to ease back in, land and go straight into it. And the cameras catch him admitting something most performers would never say out loud, let alone let get filmed. He is exhausted. His legs are in serious pain. Not the kind of tired you shake off with a coffee and a stretch. The kind of tired that comes from months of touring, stage after stage, country after country, catching up with jet lag while your body is still expected to hit every mark perfectly. And in that moment, on camera, Jimin does not hide it. He says it plainly. His legs hurt. He is worn out. This is a side of him that the polished stage performance never lets you see, and honestly, it is a side that makes you respect him even more. Now, if this were any other artist, you might expect that moment to be tense, maybe even a little dark. But this is where Jimin does something that tells you everything about who he really is. In the middle of admitting how much pain he is in, he starts joking around with the other members. Right there, in the middle of an exhausting rehearsal block, sore legs and all, he is the one lightening the mood, cracking jokes, making the people around him laugh. If you have ever wondered how these guys survive years of non-stop touring without completely breaking down, this is your answer, right here on camera. It is not that the exhaustion does not exist. It absolutely does, and Jimin does not pretend otherwise. It is that he refuses to let it define the room. He takes something heavy and finds a way to make it lighter, not just for himself, but for everyone around him. That is leadership. That is emotional intelligence. And it is happening backstage, completely unfiltered, while the rest of the world has no idea. And before we go further, I need you to do two things for me right now. First, drop a comment telling me which moment hit you hardest so far, the Europe confession or the pain he was hiding, because I read every single one of them. Second, if you are not subscribed yet, now is the time, because we are about to get into the part of this video that really shows you what kind of performer and what kind of person Jimin actually is. So let's rewind a little, because before any of the emotional moments, before the exhaustion, before the jokes, there is a scene early in this sketch that a lot of fans are going to overlook, but it might actually be the most important one. It is Jimin sitting down with the other members and the show director going through the blocking for the performance. Now, blocking sounds technical, and honestly it is, but what makes the scene worth talking about is how locked in Jimin is during it. This is not a member standing quietly while someone else makes the decisions. This is Jimin actively engaged, working through stage positioning, movement transitions, footwork alignment, making sure that when millions of people are watching on live television, every single step lands exactly where it needs to. For a performance of this scale, with cameras cutting from multiple angles, with a stage built for a football stadium instead of a concert venue, that kind of precision does not happen by accident. It happens because someone in that room cares enough to sweat the details, and clearly, Jimin is one of those people. This matters because it reframes everything that comes after it. When you understand just how seriously Jimin took the technical preparation for this show, the exhaustion you see later is not just fatigue from touring. It is fatigue from someone who is pouring everything he has into getting this exactly right. He is not coasting on reputation. He is not relying on the fact that he is already one of the most respected performers in the group. He is in that room, hours before the performance, working through the smallest details of choreography and stage movement like it is the first time he has ever performed in his life. That is the standard he holds himself to, and honestly, that is part of why the FIFA halftime show ended up looking as flawless as it did when it finally aired. Now let's talk about what happens right near the end of the sketch, because it ties the entire story together. After all of it, the blocking sessions, the emotional confession about missing Europe, the admission of physical pain, and the jokes in between, the video closes with the members coming together to encourage each other. Jimin is right there with them, reminding everyone to stay focused, to stay disciplined, to keep their movements clean and sharp so that when they finally step onto that stage, everything comes together the way it is supposed to. Picture this for a second. A group of people who have just spent hours pushing through exhaustion, who have been on the road for months straight, who are physically and mentally drained, and in that final stretch before the biggest performance of their careers, instead of falling apart, they pull each other up. That is the image this sketch leaves you with, and it is honestly one of the most powerful things Bangtan has released in this entire ARIRANG World Tour era. Here is why this video matters so much beyond just being another behind-the-scenes clip. We talk a lot about Jimin's stage presence. We talk about his dancing, his vocals, the way he commands a stage the second he steps onto it. But what this sketch reveals is the invisible work behind that presence. It is easy to watch a flawless performance and assume it just happens because someone is talented enough to make it look effortless. What this footage proves is that effortless on stage means exhausted, sore, and completely spent behind the scenes. It means flying across an ocean and walking straight into rehearsal with almost no recovery time. It means admitting out loud that your body is struggling and still choosing to show up fully for the people counting on you. That is the real story behind the FIFA World Cup halftime show, and it is a story that almost nobody got to see until this sketch dropped. And I think that is exactly why this particular video resonates so much with fans watching from outside Korea, especially here in the United States. Because up until this point, most American audiences experienced this halftime show the way it was designed to be experienced. Polished, powerful, a flawless spectacle on one of the biggest stages sports has ever offered a musical act. But polish can create distance. It can make an artist feel larger than life in a way that is hard to actually connect with. This sketch closes that distance completely. Suddenly, Jimin is not just the performer nailing every move on a football field turned concert stage. He is someone sitting backstage, missing a place he just left, admitting his legs hurt, cracking jokes to keep the mood light, and still showing up to rehearse the smallest details of his blocking until it is right. That is relatable in a way that the actual performance, as incredible as it was, could never be on its own. Let's also talk for a second about the timing of everything, because it says a lot about the pace these artists are expected to keep. Jimin was in Paris for the European leg of the tour, performing to sold-out stadiums, connecting with fans in a way that clearly left a real emotional mark on him. Then almost immediately, he is thrown into preparation for one of the most high-pressure performances of his life, on a completely different continent, with FIFA-level production expectations and a global broadcast audience unlike anything a normal concert brings. It was a tight turnaround, barely any room to recover or to fully process the emotional high of Europe before diving into the physical demands of an entirely new, entirely massive performance. And yet, watching the sketch, you would never guess how little time he had to adjust. The professionalism on display, even in the moments of visible exhaustion, is honestly remarkable. If you are new to Jimin, or new to BTS in general, and you're only now discovering this level of dedication, welcome, because this is exactly the kind of content that explains why this fandom is as passionate as it is. This is not a group that shows up, performs, and disappears. This is a group of people who, even when they are clearly running on empty, choose discipline, choose each other, and choose to give everything to the people watching. That is not something you can fake for a global broadcast audience of hundreds of millions. That kind of commitment either exists or it does not, and this sketch proves, in the most unfiltered way possible, that it absolutely exists with Jimin. Now, before we wrap this up, I want you to think about something. The halftime show that the entire world watched during the FIFA World Cup final lasted a matter of minutes. Sharp, clean, unforgettable minutes, but minutes all the same. What this sketch shows you is everything that happened behind those minutes. Hours of blocking discussions. An emotional confession about a tour he was not ready to let go of. A physical toll that most performers would never admit to on camera. Moments of humor used deliberately to keep spirits up. And a final push of encouragement between members who all knew exactly what was at stake. All of that compressed into a performance that most people watched once and moved on from. But you watching this video right now, you know the real story. You know what it actually took to get Jimin onto that stage looking like he did not have a single worry in the world. That is the kind of story we love telling on this channel, and honestly, it is the kind of story that deserves way more attention than it gets. So if this video gave you a new level of appreciation for what Jimin, and by extension the rest of BTS, actually goes through behind the biggest performances of their careers, do not just scroll past it. Hit that like button right now, because it genuinely helps more people discover content like this. Drop a comment and let me know what stood out to you the most, whether it was the Europe confession, the pain he pushed through, the blocking session, or that final moment of the members lifting each other up. And if you have not subscribed yet, seriously, do it now, because we are covering every single stop of this tour, every reveal, every behind-the-scenes moment as it comes out, and you do not want to be catching up later when you could be right here with us as it happens. One more thing before you go. If you found this video valuable, share it with someone who needs to see this side of Jimin, because a lot of fans out there have only ever seen the polished version of these performances and have no idea what actually goes into them. This kind of behind-the-scenes footage does not stay relevant forever, and the fandom conversation around it moves fast, so getting this in front of more people while it matters makes a real difference. Turn on notifications too, because Bangtan has been dropping content at an incredible pace this entire tour, and we are breaking down every single release the moment it lands. At the end of the day, what this sketch really gives us is proof of something a lot of fans have believed for a long time but rarely get to see confirmed this clearly. Jimin's stage presence is not an act. It is not a mask he puts on when the cameras start rolling and drops the second they stop. It is an extension of who he actually is, someone who feels deeply, who cares enough to work through pain rather than around it, who lifts up the people beside him even when he has nothing left to give, and who still, somehow, finds a way to smile through all of it. The FIFA World Cup final halftime show will go down as one of the biggest moments of this tour, maybe of BTS's entire career. But now you know what was really happening behind that smile, and honestly, that might be the most impressive part of the whole story. Let's zoom out for a moment and talk about why this particular stage carried so much weight in the first place. A World Cup final halftime show is not like a normal award show slot or a late-night television performance. It is built for a stadium designed for football, not for concerts, which means the choreography has to be reimagined completely. Camera angles that work for a circular stage do not work the same way on a football field. Sightlines change. Pacing changes. Every formation has to be rebuilt from scratch to read correctly to a stadium crowd and to a broadcast audience watching on television screens in almost every country on Earth. That is part of why the blocking session you see Jimin working through so carefully in the sketch matters so much. This was not a rehearsal of something familiar. This was building an entirely new version of a performance under a deadline that could not move, for an audience bigger than almost anything else in entertainment. When you understand that context, Jimin's focus in that early scene stops looking like routine preparation and starts looking like exactly what it was, a member of the group treating a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with the seriousness it deserved. And it is worth remembering what else was surrounding this moment for Jimin and the group at the time. This performance landed in the middle of an incredibly dense stretch of the ARIRANG World Tour, one stadium show after another across multiple continents, with almost no room to breathe in between. Fans watching from the outside see the highlight reel, the viral fan cams, the perfectly cut clips from every stop. What they do not see is the accumulation. The way exhaustion does not reset overnight, the way jet lag stacks on top of jet lag, the way a body pushed this hard for this long starts sending signals that are impossible to ignore, no matter how disciplined the person carrying it is. That is exactly what makes Jimin's admission in the sketch land so hard. He is not describing a rough day. He is describing the accumulated cost of months of non-stop performing, and he is describing it honestly on camera, in a moment that could have easily been left on the cutting room floor. The fact that Bangtan chose to keep it in tells you something too. This is a group, and a team around them, that understands fans do not just want the highlight reel. They want the truth behind it. It also says something that even with all of that weighing on him, Jimin's instinct in the room was not to withdraw. It was to connect. Cracking jokes while your legs are aching is not the easy option. The easy option is silence, is conserving energy, is putting your head down and getting through it alone. What this footage shows instead is someone actively choosing to spend a little more of himself in a moment when he had every reason not to, just to keep the people around him in a good headspace. If you have been in the fandom for a while, this will not surprise you. It is consistent with everything Jimin has shown us across years of tours, across every era, across every moment where the cameras happened to catch him when he thought no one outside the room was watching. But consistency does not make it less remarkable. If anything, it makes it more remarkable because it means this is not a performance for the cameras either. It is simply who he is, whether the cameras are rolling or not. There is also something worth saying about why moments like this one keep circulating so widely among fans in the United States specifically. American audiences came into this FIFA World Cup final largely through the lens of a tournament itself, many of them encountering BTS's halftime show as their introduction, or their reintroduction, to the group on this scale. A polished, high-production performance is exactly the kind of moment that turns heads on a night like that. But it is content like this sketch, the unscripted, human, occasionally messy footage from behind the curtain, that turns a moment of curiosity into genuine investment. It is one thing to be impressed by a performance. It is another thing entirely to watch someone push through real physical pain, admit it honestly, and still choose warmth over withdrawal, and come away actually caring about the person behind the performance. That shift, from admiration to genuine connection, is exactly what this kind of behind-the-scenes footage creates, and it is exactly why this video is worth watching all the way through instead of just catching the highlight clips later. So here is what I want you to take away from all of this. Every time you watch a BTS performance from here on out, and you see Jimin looking effortless, looking like the stage was built specifically for him, remember what the sketch showed you. Remember the blocking sessions worked through with total focus. Remember the confession about missing Europe before he had even fully left it behind emotionally. Remember the pain in his legs that he named out loud instead of hiding. Remember the jokes that kept the room together when exhaustion could have easily taken over. And remember the members pulling each other up in that final stretch before stepping onto the biggest stage of their careers. None of that is visible in the final broadcast. All of it is the reason the final broadcast worked as well as it did. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you want more deep dives like this one, breaking down every tour stop, every viral moment, and every side of BTS the cameras do not usually show you, this channel is exactly where you need to be. Subscribe, hit the bell, and I will see you in the next video.